Good evening, friends. Tonight we'll drift into a quiet story. A story that wanders along the golden paths of medieval Africa, where caravans once carried treasures across soft dunes, and nights were long and starlit. Before we begin, I invite you to dim your lights. Rest your head on the pillow, pull your blanket close, and let the stillness of this moment carry you gently. If this calm journey helps you unwind, perhaps tap like and subscribe, but only if it feels right, as we walk together into this world of quiet history. Now, let me take you back. Imagine the air is warm but not harsh, with a breeze moving across the desert like a hand smoothing over silk. The faint jingle of camel bells breaks the silence, slow, rhythmic, almost like a lullaby played for the stars themselves. Each bell is a note, and together they create a melody that says, "The caravan is moving, the night is alive, and the journey has just begun." The gold routes of medieval Africa were not just highways for wealth, but rivers of culture, taste, and story. They connected kingdoms like Ghana, Mali, and Songhai with the world beyond, the markets of Morocco, the ports of Egypt, even faraway cities in Europe and Asia. And while gold was the treasure most spoken of, it was often the small comforts, the meals shared by firelight, the sweet dates pressed into tired palms, that made the journeys memorable. Doesn't it feel familiar, that idea? That what lingers most from a long day is not the weight of coins, but the warmth of food? Let us imagine ourselves with one of those caravans. We are travelers, maybe a little dusty from the day's march. The sun has dropped low, painting the horizon with the last blush of orange and violet. Camels kneel in the sand, groaning softly, grateful for rest. A fire is lit, its crackle competing gently with the sighing of wind. Someone passes around dates, sticky, caramel sweet, almost melting on the tongue. They're not so different from a chewy candy bar today, are they? A medieval Pop-Tart, if you will, without the frosting but with all the sugar you could ask for. And while the sweetness lingers, voices rise and fall around the fire. Some tell stories of kings, like Mansa Musa, whose pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324 was so grand, so overflowing with gold, that it changed the economy of entire regions. Others speak of simpler things, a new spice tasted in a market, or the odd sound a camel made when it sneezed. Humor traveled with the caravans, too, because long journeys need laughter as much as food. As you chew slowly on that imaginary date, let the texture guide you. Smooth outside, sticky inside, a burst of natural sugar that feels like sunshine preserved. The crackle of the fire softens into the background. Someone is boiling water in a brass kettle, the steam rising into the cool night. Soon, mint leaves will be dropped in, releasing their sharp green perfume, calming yet invigorating. Imagine sipping that tea, the rim of the cup warm against your lips, the taste fresh, the heat settling gently in your chest. And the stars, oh, the stars above Africa's gold routes were like no other. Endless, countless, strewn like crushed salt across black silk. You might think of them as a celestial marketplace, each one a lamp lit for a traveler's way. Isn't it curious, how in every time and culture, people have looked up and felt the same awe? The same smallness, and yet, the same comfort. The caravan prepares to sleep. Rugs are laid out on sand still holding the day's warmth. The camels are hobbled close, their shapes like soft hills against the horizon. A storyteller finishes his tale, his voice low, his words stretching out like threads into the dark. The fire dies down, its glow shrinking to embers. The bells are quiet now, and the only sound is the soft hum of the night. And as your eyes close, as your breath slows, you feel it, the first stretch of the journey along Africa's gold routes, where wealth was measured not just in metal, but in shared sweetness, quiet fires, and the endless patience of the desert. As the embers dim, let's wander further with our thoughts. Picture the caravan at dawn. The first light is pale, almost shy, like a thin sheet of gold brushed across the horizon. There is a silence to early desert mornings, not empty silence, but layered, filled with the whisper of shifting sand, the soft grunt of camels rising, the muted clink of pots being stacked and tied. Travelers wake slowly, stretching under blankets woven with patterns of deep reds, browns, and ochres. Some yawn in long, lazy arcs, while others already kneel in prayer, whispering words that rise with the new sun. The air is cool enough to make you tuck your cloak tighter, yet you can already sense the heat gathering for the day ahead. Isn't it a strange comfort, knowing both cool and warmth are promised to you, one after the other? Breakfast is simple but soothing. A flatbread warmed over the ashes, soft and pliable, with just a hint of smoke clinging to its edges. Sometimes there's honey to spread across it, golden and thick, catching the morning light like amber. Other times, crushed nuts mixed with dates make a paste that's both sweet and filling. Imagine taking a bite, chewy bread, sticky sweetness, a crunch at the very end. It's not so different from a homemade energy bar, centuries before anyone thought to package one. The camels are loaded carefully, their long necks swaying, their jaws working as if chewing invisible thoughts. Bells are fastened, ropes tied, goods balanced. Gold dust, cloth dyed in brilliant indigos, salt cut into great slabs, these are treasures on the move. But tucked beside them, almost unnoticed, are sacks of spices, bundles of dried fruit, even gourds of fermented milk. Little comforts, little luxuries. Because what is wealth without the small things that make a traveler smile? The road stretches ahead, endless sand meeting endless sky. Yet the desert is not empty. It hums with life if you know where to look. Tiny lizards dart from rock to shadow. Birds circle high, riding currents invisible to the eye. And sometimes, from a distance, you catch the mirage of water, shimmering like a promise that drifts away as you approach. Have you ever chased a dream that dissolved the closer you came? That's what a mirage is, a lesson in patience, and perhaps in humility, too. Midday heat arrives like a drumbeat. The air thickens, the sand burns beneath the feet, and even the camels walk slower, their breaths longer, deeper. Cloaks are drawn tighter around faces, not for warmth but for shade, creating pockets of cool darkness. And still, the bells keep chiming, that steady lull of metal against leather, like a metronome guiding weary feet forward. When rest comes, it is under the shadow of an acacia tree, or in the shelter of a low ridge. Lunch is as simple as breakfast, more bread, perhaps softened in water, flavored with a pinch of salt. Salt was not just a seasoning here, it was wealth itself, so precious that slabs of it could be traded for gold. Isn't it funny, to think of salt, the thing we casually shake over fries today, once weighing as much in value as silver coins? The shade offers relief, and conversation drifts lazily. Someone hums a tune, an old caravan song that has no words, just syllables rolling like water. Another picks at a lute, strings twanging softly in the stillness. And there, in the middle of the desert, music floats, gentle, fragile, yet strong enough to bind the weary travelers together. The afternoon fades, the sun rolling lower, shadows lengthening. And once more, the caravan rises. Step after step, mile after mile, the gold routes stretch on, not just a path of trade but a path of patience, of endurance, of small joys tucked into long days. And as we walk further into this gentle horizon, let your own breath find the rhythm of the caravan bells. Slow, steady, unhurried. A rhythm that will carry you softly, not just through the desert, but into sleep itself. Evening approaches again, soft and unhurried, like a curtain drawn slowly across the sky. The desert, which had blazed with light only hours before, begins to cool. The air grows gentler, almost forgiving, and the colors deepen, rose, violet, indigo, each bleeding into the next. Shadows stretch long, and the caravan prepares to settle once more. There is a kind of ritual to stopping for the night. First, the camels are unburdened, their loads untied and laid carefully upon woven mats. They groan, in that peculiar way camels do, a sound halfway between complaint and relief. Have you ever heard it? Like an old door creaking open, with a splash of humor hidden inside. The fire is lit again, sparks flying into the dusk. And as flames rise, so does the promise of food. Tonight, the meal is a stew. Lentils, onions, perhaps a few dried apricots tossed in for sweetness. The pot bubbles slowly, steam rising into the star-filled air. It smells earthy, rich, and comforting. Someone stirs with a wooden spoon, humming softly. The sound of the bubbling stew mingles with the crackle of the fire, forming a rhythm as steady as the bells of the day. Imagine dipping a piece of flatbread into the pot, tearing it soft and warm, soaking it in broth until it nearly falls apart, then tasting it, savory, sweet, smoky all at once. Isn't it curious how the simplest food can feel like a feast when you are tired? As the stew simmers, stories drift once again. One traveler recalls the market at Timbuktu, where manuscripts were sold alongside gold, and knowledge was valued as dearly as wealth. Another chuckles about a camel that tried to nibble on his turban. Laughter ripples gently, not loud, but steady enough to warm the circle. Have you noticed how laughter, like fire, gathers people close? And then there are the treats, the sweets travelers save for nights like this. Sugared almonds, carried carefully in small pouches. Honey cakes, dense and sticky, cut into rough squares. Imagine biting into one, the crust gives way with a soft crunch, the inside sweet and grainy, the honey clinging to your teeth in the most pleasant way. A medieval energy boost, you might say. Someone jokes that it's the closest thing they'll get to a hot pastry in the desert. The group laughs again, soft and knowing. Night deepens, and the firelight flickers against the faces gathered there. Shadows dance on rugs and cloth, weaving shapes that look almost alive. A storyteller begins, his voice slow, deliberate, meant for sleepy ears. He speaks of Mansa Musa once more, that legendary king who carried so much gold across these very routes that cities bowed under its weight. Some say he gave so much away in Cairo that the price of gold itself collapsed for years. Imagine that, a single man's generosity reshaping the economy of nations. It is history, but it sounds like myth. And in the glow of firelight, myth and truth feel like neighbors. The camels settle too, their shapes silhouetted against the stars. Their breath is steady, a low hum that adds to the night's music. Above, the constellations shine brighter, as if leaning down to listen. One star in particular seems to twinkle harder than the rest, as though winking at the caravan below. Perhaps you've had that feeling, that the sky, vast as it is, can sometimes feel like it notices you. The stew is finished, the bowls emptied, the honey cakes gone. Sleepiness spreads through the camp like smoke, curling slow and soft. Rugs are pulled close, cloaks drawn tight. Someone strums the lute one last time, its notes fading into silence. And you, too, feel it, the weight of the day, the sweetness of the night, the comfort of voices fading into dreams. The gold routes stretch on, but for now, the world is reduced to this, fire dying low, stars keeping watch, and sleep, gentle as sand slipping through your fingers. The night drifts by quietly. Somewhere in the distance, a jackal calls, its cry sharp and lonely, but the sound doesn't disturb the camp. It simply becomes part of the music of the desert, a note played on the edge of dreams. Travelers stir beneath their blankets, but only to roll onto their sides, chasing more comfortable angles against the firm sand. The camels sleep, heads tucked low, tails flicking lazily when a stray insect dares too close. Morning comes again, and it feels gentler this time. Perhaps because the body is used to the rhythm now, the early waking, the careful loading, the slow steps into the new day. The light is a softer gold, spreading slowly like honey poured over the horizon. Imagine watching it while sipping a small cup of warm milk sweetened with dates. Thick, creamy, just enough sugar to coat the tongue and linger. Doesn't it sound like the kind of breakfast that could turn even the hardest morning into something tender? The caravan moves once more. The bells begin their steady chime, and the footsteps beat into the sand, one after another, after another. It feels endless, yet there's a comfort in that repetition. Like the rocking of a cradle, or the sound of rain tapping steadily against a roof. Patterns that calm, rhythms that soothe. Have you noticed how repetition, even in simple things, can bring peace? The road today leads past an oasis. The sight of palm trees swaying gently, their reflections rippling in water, is enough to make weary hearts lift. Here, water is more than refreshment, it is survival, wealth, a blessing in liquid form. Travelers drink deeply, cupping their hands to scoop, letting the cool liquid run between fingers and down throats dry from sand. Camels lower their heads too, slurping noisily, as if they have been holding their thirst for years. And there are dates again, freshly plucked from the palms. Not dried, not pressed into cakes, but soft and ripe, their skin thin and delicate, their insides bursting with sticky sweetness. Bite into one, and the juice dribbles down your chin before you can catch it. Isn't it funny, how fruit can feel like dessert when eaten in the right place, at the right time? One traveler jokes that he could live on dates alone if only someone taught him 50 different ways to cook them. Another swears that date wine, once tasted, is impossible to forget. Shade gathers under the palms, and with it, rest. Some stretch out flat, using packs as pillows. Others whisper, voices low, telling tales of great cities that wait at the end of these roads. Tales of Gao, with its bustling markets, of Timbuktu, with its libraries, of Jen, where clay walls rise like castles from the earth itself. To think, all of these places stitched together by trade, like beads strung on one long necklace. Each city shining, each city different, yet all tied to the same golden thread. Afternoon arrives, and the caravan moves again. The desert is a teacher now, reminding each traveler of patience. Step after step, the horizon never seems closer, yet somehow, distance is covered all the same. Isn't that how many journeys feel in life? Slow, endless at times, yet one day you look back and realize just how far you've come. Dinner that night is simpler. A mash of chickpeas, spiced lightly with cumin and coriander, scooped up with bits of bread. It's hearty, satisfying, though not luxurious. And yet, when eaten after a day of walking, it feels like luxury itself. A bowl of food, a circle of fire, and the company of fellow travelers, that is wealth enough. The sky deepens into navy, then into velvet black, stars scattering once again across its canvas. A soft wind picks up, tugging gently at cloaks and rugs, carrying the faint scent of firewood smoke. Somewhere, a lute plays again, slow and melancholy, as though each note has to walk as far as the travelers did today. And under that music, you feel your own eyes grow heavy. The road is long, but the night is kind, and sleep drapes itself over you like the desert's own blanket. Night passes gently once again. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the desert itself breathing, slow, steady, deep, like a giant at rest. The sand cools under the stars, the fire fades into glowing embers, and sleep drapes over the camp in quiet layers. Each traveler is wrapped in dreams, and perhaps you are too. By the time morning comes, it feels familiar, almost like greeting an old friend. The routine repeats, yet it never grows dull. The sun edges over the horizon, spilling warm gold across the land, the camels rise awkwardly to their feet, and the air fills once more with the clinking of bells and the shuffling of steps. There is something soothing in this predictability, every day beginning with the same rhythm, every day carrying the same promise of forward motion. Today's breakfast is different. A traveler opens a jar of preserved figs, their skins dark and glossy, their insides soft as jam. He spreads them across bread with a grin, offering a slice to anyone nearby. Imagine biting into that, chewy, tangy, sweet, with just a hint of earthiness. Like a medieval fruit roll-up, really, though far messier and far more satisfying. The figs stick to your fingers, but in the desert, no one minds. Stickiness is just another reminder of sweetness. The road ahead narrows between low ridges. The sand gives way to rocky paths, and the sound of boots and hooves changes from muffled thuds to sharp crunches. The shift feels refreshing, like a change of scenery in a long walk. The rocks shimmer faintly, catching the light as though tiny sparks of hidden gold are scattered through them. Travelers talk softly about mines, about places where dust is sifted, nuggets weighed, and fortunes found. Some dream of reaching them. Others shake their heads, saying the road itself, the journey, is the treasure. Midday again, and with it, the hush of heat. The group pauses beneath a canopy stretched between poles, creating a small island of shade. Lunch is dates mixed with ground millet, packed into small balls that are easy to carry and easier still to eat. They're filling, simple, and oddly tasty, like the original trail mix bar. Energy food for the tired body, comfort for the traveling mind. The afternoon stretches long, but the horizon eventually offers a gift, the faint outline of walls, a city rising from the desert. Not close yet, but close enough to spark excitement. Gao, Timbuktu, Jen, each name whispered with anticipation, each carrying promises of markets, beds, and food more elaborate than flatbread and stew. Imagine the thrill of spotting such a place after days of sand and sky. The heart beats quicker, steps feel lighter, and even the camels seem to sway with extra pride. Evening falls, and once more the camp is made. Tonight, the meal is richer, a pot of couscous steamed with spices, flavored with bits of dried fruit, almonds, and a dash of cinnamon. It is fragrant, comforting, and deeply satisfying. The steam carries hints of sweetness and warmth, drifting into the cool night air. Someone declares it the best meal of the journey so far, though others laugh and say the same thing every night. Perhaps it's not just the food, it's the hunger, the fire, the laughter that make each dinner taste like a feast. As sleep comes again, a quiet thought lingers. These gold routes were not just lines on a map, but living veins, connecting lands, people, and cultures. They carried treasures, yes, but also stories, songs, flavors, and friendships. And in their rhythm, in their patience, there is a kind of lullaby, one that has stretched across centuries. The fire crackles lower. The camels shift in their sleep. Stars blink above. And you, too, are carried gently along the caravan's path, toward dreams, toward rest, toward horizons of gold. Good evening again, my friend. Now that we've walked with the caravan beneath the stars and along the golden sands, let us step into a different rhythm. Imagine leaving the open desert behind and entering the heart of a city, one of those places where caravans gathered, where gold routes poured into markets alive with sound, color, and scent. The first thing you notice is the noise. Not harsh, not overwhelming, but layered. The clip-clop of donkeys on stone paths, the rustle of woven cloth as merchants adjust their stalls, the rise and fall of voices bargaining in half a dozen languages. A hum of life, like bees in a hive, steady and purposeful. Have you ever stood somewhere so alive with sound that it felt like music, even though no instrument was playing? The air is heavy with smells. Spices stacked high in baskets release their perfumes, cinnamon sweet and warm, cumin earthy and sharp, cloves rich and almost floral. Dried fish hangs nearby, its briny scent mingling with smoke from fires roasting meat. And somewhere, just beyond the next row of stalls, you catch the sugar-sweet aroma of fried dough. Even in the 13th century, people loved the comfort of something fried. Imagine a hot pastry, golden and crisp, dusted with crushed nuts or drizzled with honey. Bite into it, and the crunch gives way to warmth, sweetness melting across your tongue. Could this be the ancestor of the donut? Perhaps not in shape, but surely in spirit. Merchants sit proudly by their goods. Some display slabs of salt, each cut like a brick, pale and glittering. Others show off bolts of indigo cloth, dyed so deep it looks like the night sky itself has been woven into fabric. And there, under the shade of a wide awning, sits a scribe with ink and parchment, ready to copy letters or record sales. The market is more than buying and selling, it is a crossroads of knowledge. Isn't it calming to think of history not just as battles or kings, but as a place where people simply met, traded, and learned? Let us wander further. A storyteller has gathered a small crowd, his arms wide, his voice carrying. He tells of kings and heroes, his words spilling like water from a jug. Children sit at the front, eyes wide, while travelers rest in the back, chewing on skewers of grilled lamb. The meat is smoky, tender, and spiced with coriander, cumin, and just a touch of pepper. Imagine holding one of those skewers, juices dripping, heat rising, flavor bursting in every bite. It's comfort food, simple and timeless. Nearby, a stall sells nuts coated in honey. They glisten in the sunlight, each almond or walnut wrapped in amber sweetness. A boy sneaks one, his face lighting up as the sugar cracks between his teeth. His laughter joins the sounds of bargaining and music, weaving into the market's endless symphony. And then there is the gold. Not always shown openly, but present. A flash of it at a merchant's belt, a glimpse of coins traded discreetly in a cloth bag. Gold dust in gourds, nuggets in pouches, wealth flowing as quietly as water through hidden channels. The market thrives on it, but it also thrives on something harder to measure, the joy of exchange, the thrill of tasting, smelling, touching something new. As the sun climbs higher, shadows shrink. The air warms, the smells grow stronger, and the hum of the market swells. And you, moving through it all, feel a kind of calm energy, alive, yet not hurried. Surrounded by colors, scents, flavors, and voices, it feels almost like drifting through a dream where everything is vibrant but nothing demands urgency. The market does not rest, it flows, like a river with many tributaries. Each lane is a current, carrying you toward new sights and scents. As you step between woven stalls, the sun filters through cloth awnings, dappling the ground with patches of gold and shadow. The heat presses softly, not unbearable, more like a blanket draped across your shoulders. And in this warmth, life unfolds with a gentle persistence. To your left, you see a potter at work. His hands glide over clay, shaping a vessel on a small wheel. The clay spins, wet and earthy, his thumbs pressing in with practiced grace. Around him, jars and bowls are stacked neatly, their surfaces painted with spirals, waves, and the shapes of stars. One jug has a neck so slender it looks impossible, like it might snap at a glance. Yet it holds firm, strong despite its delicacy. Isn't it soothing to see skill so steady, so quiet, yet so lasting? To your right, baskets overflow with dried fruits, apricots the color of sunset, figs dark and glossy, raisins shriveled but sweet. Children reach for them, their fingers sticky as they sneak pieces from vendors who pretend not to notice. Imagine the burst of flavor, tart apricot that puckers the tongue, syrupy fig that clings to the teeth, raisin sweetness deep as molasses. The simplest treats often carry the deepest comfort. Further along, a musician sits cross-legged with a kora, a stringed instrument with a gourd body and a voice like water rippling over stone. His fingers pluck gently, and the sound floats above the market noise, weaving through the air like a spell. People slow their steps when they pass him, some closing their eyes for just a moment. Have you ever paused in the middle of a busy day, caught by a melody that seemed to know your heart better than you did? That is what the kora does here, it reminds even the busiest merchant that life can be music. Near the center of the square, spices dominate. Mounds of saffron, turmeric, ginger, and pepper are stacked high, each forming little hills of color. Red, yellow, orange, brown, the palette of the earth itself poured into baskets. The scent is almost dizzying, warm, sharp, invigorating. A merchant offers you a taste, a pinch of ground ginger, sharp on the tongue, followed by the sweetness of cinnamon, like a hug in powdered form. Someone nearby sneezes after sniffing black pepper, and the stall erupts in laughter. Even sneezes, it seems, can become part of the music of the market. Not far away, a group of women grind grains in large stone mortars. The sound of pestle against stone is steady, rhythmic, almost hypnotic. Their voices rise in song as they work, harmonies flowing easily between them. Each note is a reminder that even labor can be softened by companionship, that even the hardest tasks become lighter when shared. And then, tucked in the shade of an archway, a baker tends to his oven. The flatbreads he pulls from it puff with steam, their edges crisp, their centers soft. Some are plain, but others are stuffed, cheese melting inside, or spiced chickpeas tucked neatly within. Imagine tearing into one, the crust warm against your fingertips, the filling spilling out in savory delight. Isn't it funny how bread, so simple, can carry endless variations of comfort? The market is full of trade, yes, but it is also full of generosity. A woman offers a stranger a sip from her jug of cool water. A boy shares his fried pastry with a friend. A merchant, seeing your weary stance, waves you closer to taste a fig, free of charge. Wealth is measured not only in coins here, but in kindness, in shared sweetness, in the memory of flavors carried home. The sun tilts lower, shadows lengthen again, and still the hum of voices continues. The market lives on time of its own, it does not rush, it does not sleep, it simply breathes, like the desert, like the caravan, like the stars above. The afternoon deepens, and with it, the colors of the market shift. The sunlight takes on a richer hue, turning cloth brighter, spices warmer, and shadows longer. It feels as though the entire square has slipped into a slower rhythm, a drowsy sway that matches the heat of the day. Merchants fan themselves lazily, children chase one another in circles, and the sound of bargaining softens into something like a lull. Under a wide awning, you see jars of honey lined in careful rows. Each jar catches the light differently, some golden yellow, others almost amber, some so dark they seem brown. A merchant spoons a drop onto a flat piece of bread and holds it out. The honey is thick, heavy, slow to fall, and when you taste it, it coats your tongue like velvet. Sweet, floral, almost spiced, as if the flowers themselves had whispered into it. Imagine how precious this would feel after weeks of desert travel, a spoonful of sunlight you can eat. Not far away, a leatherworker displays sandals, belts, and satchels. The smell of tanned hide is strong, rich, earthy. He runs his hand over a finished satchel, the surface smooth yet firm, promising years of use. Travelers eye the belts, knowing their own are worn thin from weeks on the road. Isn't it remarkable how something as simple as leather could carry entire journeys, binding both people and goods together? A small group gathers near a storyteller once more. This time, his tale is about the founding of Jen, the city of clay. His voice rises and falls like waves, his hands shaping images in the air. He speaks of masons mixing earth and straw, of walls rising strong enough to last centuries, of mosques that shine like castles of sun-baked stone. Children lean forward, eyes bright, while older listeners nod, remembering times they walked those very streets. For a moment, even the market pauses, held in the spell of his words. And then there is music again, different from the soft kora earlier. This is a drum, hand-slapped, steady, commanding. The rhythm calls feet to move, and soon, a few people are dancing, their bodies swaying, their steps light despite the heat. The crowd claps along, laughter spilling into the air. Have you ever felt the pull of rhythm, that irresistible tug that makes your body sway even when you didn't plan to dance? That is what the drum does here. Nearby, food vendors serve bowls of steaming couscous, each grain light and fluffy, topped with chickpeas, onions, and a drizzle of oil. Others sell skewers of roasted meat, fragrant with spices, the smoke curling upward in thin gray ribbons. Imagine holding that skewer, biting into tender meat that bursts with flavor, the taste lingering long after the bite is gone. And then, perhaps, following it with a small cup of spiced tea, hot, strong, and sweetened just enough to soften the edge. The kind of drink that feels like both a refreshment and a lullaby. As the sun lowers, golden light sweeps across the market. It paints the indigo cloth deeper, turns the jars of honey into glowing lanterns, and catches the dust in the air so that even the smallest particles seem magical. Merchants prepare to pack their goods, stacking jars, tying sacks, rolling cloth into neat bundles. Yet no one is in a hurry. The market breathes out slowly, settling into its evening rest. You wander toward the edge, where the noise fades into quiet. The city walls rise in the distance, their outlines sharp against the sky. Behind them, rooftops catch the last of the light, glowing briefly before giving in to twilight. The air cools, carrying with it the faint sound of bells from a distant caravan arriving late. And you, standing there, feel a stillness. The day has been full of color, sound, and taste, yet it ends in peace. The market, like the desert, like the caravan, has its own rhythm, busy, slow, alive, calm, all flowing together like a song you can fall asleep to. As twilight settles, the market takes on a different glow. Oil lamps flicker to life, their flames trembling in the soft evening breeze. Shadows stretch longer, and the once bustling square now feels like a gentle gathering place. Merchants who spent the day calling out prices now sit more quietly, sipping tea, sharing morsels of food with neighbors. The hum of trade fades, replaced by the softer murmur of friendship. Picture yourself sitting near one of those lamps, the flame dancing inside its glass. A bowl of warm lentil soup rests in your hands, steam curling upward like ghostly ribbons. The flavor is mild but grounding, lentils earthy, onions sweet, the broth seasoned just enough with salt and cumin. With each sip, warmth spreads through your chest, soothing, steady, simple. Isn't it calming to think that centuries ago, someone else sat in the same position, holding a bowl just like this, finding the same comfort in something so unassuming? Across the square, a baker pulls his last round of bread from the oven. The loaves are golden and fragrant, crusts crackling as they cool. Children gather eagerly, their laughter rising like sparks. A mother tears one loaf apart, steam escaping as she hands half to her child. The bread is still hot, soft inside, chewy, almost buttery though it holds no butter at all. Imagine taking a bite, your teeth sinking into warmth, your lips brushing crumbs, the taste both plain and perfect. A food that carries its own lullaby. The music hasn't stopped either, though it has softened. A flute rises gently, its notes wandering like fireflies. The kora player joins in again, strings flowing beneath the melody. The sounds mingle with the night air, and suddenly the whole market feels like an orchestra tuned for dreams. Travelers lean against walls, eyes half closed, letting the music guide them into that drowsy place between waking and sleep. There are sweets too, because nights call for sweetness. A vendor brings out trays of sesame candies, seeds pressed together with honey, forming golden bricks that crunch when bitten. They snap in the teeth, crumble into nutty shards, and leave behind the lingering stickiness of honey. Another vendor offers fried dough dipped in syrup, glistening in the lamplight. The syrup clings to fingers, forcing a child to lick them clean, giggling as he does. Isn't it funny how across time and place, children always find joy in sticky fingers? Conversations drift in gentle waves. A merchant tells of a caravan arriving from the north, carrying glass beads in colors that sparkle even by firelight. Another whispers news of a scholar passing through, carrying manuscripts that speak of medicine and stars. And someone else, perhaps with a little too much tea, insists he once saw a camel laugh. Whether or not it's true, the group chuckles, the sound warm and human. The lamps flicker lower as the night deepens. Merchants roll cloth, tie bundles, close jars with lids that click softly. Slowly, the square empties. Donkeys are led away, their hooves tapping quietly on stone. Stray dogs circle, sniffing for crumbs, their tails wagging in shadows. The air cools further, carrying with it the faint smell of smoke and spice, like the market itself is sighing before sleep. And you, sitting there, feel your own body soften. The soup bowl is empty now, the music is fading, and the firelight is little more than a glow. The market, once alive with sound and color, has become as quiet as the desert night. Its heartbeat slows, and so does yours, until both feel in sync, calm, steady, drifting toward rest. The night has wrapped itself fully around the city now, and the market rests in its shadow. Only a few lanterns remain lit, glowing like tiny stars scattered across the square. The air is cooler, soft against the skin, carrying the scent of ashes, spices, and bread that lingers even after the ovens are cold. You might think the market has fallen silent, but if you listen closely, you'll find it still whispers. A merchant hums as he locks away his goods, the tune low and steady. Two boys whisper jokes as they stack baskets, their laughter hushed but bright. Somewhere, a lute twangs once, then again, before falling quiet, as if its strings are sighing into sleep. The city does not truly end its song, it simply lowers the volume, like a lullaby played softer and softer until it fades into dreams. Travelers settle near the walls, laying out mats, wrapping cloaks tight. Some nibble on leftover bread, tearing it into small pieces, chewing slowly as though to stretch out its comfort. Others sip the last of their tea, now lukewarm, but no less soothing. Imagine yourself there, leaning against a stone wall warmed by the sun hours earlier, watching the last wisps of smoke curl upward into the night sky. The taste of bread lingers, simple and grounding. A scholar passes by, his robes brushing the dust. He carries a scroll beneath his arm, tied with red cord. He does not speak, but the sight of him reminds everyone that markets are not just for goods, but for ideas. Knowledge travels these routes just as gold and salt do, shaping the world quietly, page by page. Isn't it calming to think that wisdom itself once wandered these streets, drifting like incense on the breeze? A stray dog lies down nearby, head on paws, ears twitching at the faintest sound. Its body rises and falls in rhythm with the breathing of the travelers, all folding into the same pattern of rest. The desert taught rhythm, the caravan carried rhythm, and now the market breathes it too. Slow. Steady. Soothing. The lamps burn lower still. One by one, they are snuffed out, until the square is bathed in moonlight alone. The moon hangs above, bright and serene, silvering the rooftops, the jars, the stalls. It feels as though the city itself has closed its eyes, surrendered to the night. The stars gather close, silent companions to those drifting into sleep. In your mind, you can still taste the day, honey thick and golden, bread warm and crackling, spices sharp and fragrant. You can still hear the echoes, laughter, bargaining, music, the clink of coins exchanged. And you can still see the colors, indigo cloth, amber jars of honey, saffron bright as fire. The market has slowed, but it has left its imprint on your senses, a gentle memory that will stay even as dreams take over. And so, with the city resting, with the square quiet, you too allow your breath to soften, your eyes to close. The market, like the caravan, has carried us through another rhythm, busy at first, then quiet, then finally still. From bells to bargaining, from music to moonlight, every sound and every flavor has led us here, to this place of calm. Sleep comes easily when the world itself feels like it is dreaming. And so the market dreams now, waiting for dawn to stir it awake again. But until then, it rests in peace, and so should you. Good evening once again, my friend. We have walked with caravans through deserts, and we have wandered the lively markets beneath the sun. Tonight, let us follow another path, one that flows not on sand, but on water. Imagine a wide river winding its way through the landscape, carrying boats laden with goods, people, and dreams. The first thing you notice is the sound. Not the bells of camels this time, nor the cries of merchants, but the steady lap of water against wooden hulls. The rhythm is soft, repetitive, like breathing in and out. The river is alive, always moving, but never hurried. Have you ever listened to a stream at night, its voice quiet but constant? That is the song of this river, magnified and deepened until it cradles you like a lullaby. Boats are tied along the bank, their ropes creaking as the current tugs gently. Some are wide and heavy, built to carry sacks of grain, jars of honey, or bundles of cloth. Others are narrow and light, darting swiftly with passengers alone. Men step carefully across planks, balancing loads on their shoulders. A boy tosses a basket of dried fish from one boat to another, grinning as he makes the throw without spilling a single piece. Life along the river is busy, yet its busyness feels calm, softened by the water's constant presence. The air here is different, cooler than the desert, carrying with it the scent of wet earth and reeds. Birds swoop low, their wings flashing in the sunlight, their cries sharp and playful. Dragonflies hover near the surface, their wings shimmering like fragments of stained glass. And every now and then, a fish leaps, breaking the surface in a brief splash before disappearing again. The river does not just carry goods, it carries life in every form. Meals here are different too. Instead of the dried fruits and flatbreads of the caravan, riverside tables offer fish stews, simmered slowly in clay pots. Imagine a bowl of catfish soup, the broth rich with tomatoes, onions, and a squeeze of lemon for brightness. The flavor is tangy, hearty, warming even as it refreshes. Bread is still here, of course, it always is, but now it is dipped into soup, soaking up flavor, turning each bite into a small feast. Doesn't it remind you of how comforting it feels to dip bread into warm broth on a cool day? Simple, timeless comfort. As boats set out, the sound shifts. Oars dip into the water with soft splashes, pushing vessels forward. The current lends a hand, pulling them gently along. Traders sit low in their boats, guarding their goods while humming songs passed down for generations. The songs rise and fall like the river itself, steady, endless, meant to carry time away as easily as the current carries the boats. On the banks, children play. They chase each other along the water's edge, their laughter mixing with the splashes of their bare feet. Some skip stones, each pebble bouncing once, twice, 3 times before sinking. One boy lets out a triumphant cheer as his stone skips 5 times, the record of the day. Have you ever skipped stones yourself, watching them dance across water as though defying gravity for just a moment? It feels like magic every time. Evening approaches, and the river reflects the sky. Gold turns to pink, pink to purple, purple to deep blue. The boats glow in the fading light, their ripples stretching out like brushstrokes on a canvas. Fires are lit on shore, smoke drifting lazily into the dusk. The scent of roasted fish rises, mingling with wood smoke and herbs. People gather around bowls, tearing bread, sipping broth, laughing softly. The day has ended, but the river flows on, unbothered, eternal. And you, listening to its gentle lap, feel your own breath fall into its rhythm. Slow. Steady. Peaceful. The current carries you, not toward urgency, but toward rest. Morning along the river feels different from morning in the desert. Instead of silence broken by camel bells, you hear the soft chorus of birds waking with the dawn. Herons stretch their long wings, calling out in voices that echo across the water. Tiny sparrows flit between reeds, chirping as if greeting the sun itself. The river glows under the early light, each ripple catching a streak of gold, until it looks as though the current itself is stitched with sunlight. Boats begin to stir. Ropes are untied, sails adjusted, baskets rearranged. The river is a road now, as busy as any path of sand, but smoother, gentler. Traders shout greetings from one vessel to another, their voices bouncing over the water. One man laughs as his boat drifts lazily, carried faster than he can row. The river does the work for me today, he jokes, and his laughter ripples out almost as far as the current. Breakfast here is simple but filling. A woman ladles out bowls of millet porridge, thick and creamy, flavored with milk and just a hint of honey. Imagine dipping your spoon into that, smooth, warm, with sweetness that lingers on your tongue. Someone sprinkles ground nuts over the top, adding a soft crunch. It feels like the medieval cousin of oatmeal, though with more texture and flavor. Travelers eat slowly, watching the sun climb, savoring the warmth in their bellies before setting out once more. As boats glide downstream, the scenery shifts. Villages appear along the banks, their houses made of mud brick, their roofs flat and practical. Smoke curls upward from cooking fires, carrying scents of roasting grain and simmering stew. Children wave from the shore, their laughter carried by the wind. Some run alongside the boats for a while, keeping pace with surprising energy, before dropping back, waving until they vanish into the trees. Isn't it striking, how joy often comes in such fleeting, simple gestures? The river itself seems endless, winding lazily between stretches of forest and open grassland. Along its edges grow groves of mango trees, heavy with fruit. Travelers stop to rest beneath their shade, biting into ripe mangoes, their juices running sticky and sweet down their hands. The fruit is golden inside, soft as butter, tangy and rich all at once. Some laugh at the mess, wiping their faces with sleeves, while others simply let the juice drip, too content to care. A mango eaten riverside, they say, always tastes better than one bought in a market. Perhaps it's the freshness, or perhaps it's the way the river breeze mixes with the sweetness. By midday, the water sparkles brighter, almost blinding under the sun. The heat rises, pressing down gently, making movement slower, breaths longer. Travelers rest in their boats, leaning back against bundles of cloth or jars of goods. Some nap with hats pulled low, rocked gently by the current. Others fish lazily, dropping lines into the water, hoping for a catch big enough to feed them come evening. The splash of a fish, the tug of a line, the cheer of success, all these sounds fold into the river's endless hum. Lunch is eaten aboard, flatbread dipped into bowls of fish stew, fragrant with garlic, onions, and fresh herbs gathered along the shore. The broth warms the stomach, the bread soaks up flavor, and laughter rises as someone drips stew onto their tunic. Food tastes different on the water. It carries not only its own flavor, but the flavor of the place, the breeze, the sound, the rhythm of boats gliding. As the afternoon passes, the river narrows. Birds circle closer, reeds grow thicker, and the current quickens, urging the boats forward. The sound of water against wood grows louder, almost insistent, but never threatening. It is simply the river reminding its travelers, this is my road, and I decide the pace. And so you let go, as the travelers do, leaning into the rhythm of water. Each splash, each ripple, is another step in a journey that feels both endless and timeless, carrying you further into calm. Evening approaches along the river, and the light softens into hues of rose and violet. The water mirrors the sky, so that every ripple seems brushed with color. Boats drift more slowly now, some tied to the banks where fires are already beginning to glow. Smoke rises in thin curls, blending with the scent of herbs and roasted fish. It is a calm that wraps around everyone like a blanket. A family gathers near one fire. Their pot simmers gently, filled with a stew of fish, okra, and tomatoes. The broth is thick, green flecks of herbs dancing on its surface. Someone tears bread into chunks, dipping it in until it soaks, then passing it around. Each bite is tangy, hearty, warming. Imagine chewing slowly, the bread melting into the broth, the fish tender, the okra soft and slippery. The taste lingers, simple but unforgettable, as if the river itself has been folded into the dish. Nearby, another group shares roasted maize. Ears are laid directly on hot coals, their husks charred, their kernels popping faintly. When peeled, the corn glows golden, steaming with heat. Butter is nowhere to be found, but salt and spice take its place. One bite crunches, sweet and smoky, grains sticking between teeth in the most familiar way. Have you noticed how roasted corn carries its own music, the crackle of fire, the burst of kernels, the crunch of every bite? It is as if food itself is playing along with the night. Children splash at the edge of the river, their laughter rising like birdsong. They chase fish with cupped hands, catching nothing but water, but delighting in the chase. A dog barks once, then settles at its master's feet, eyes drooping, tail wagging in lazy rhythm. The river glimmers faintly in the lamplight, and the whole world seems to sway in time with its current. A trader begins to sing, a low, steady tune that tells of journeys and returns. His voice is joined by others, some strong, some wavering, but all blending into harmony. No instruments, no stage, only voices carried by night air. It feels ancient, timeless, as though the river itself is humming along. And in that sound, you feel the weight of centuries, generations repeating the same songs on the same banks. Isn't it humbling to think how often history repeats not in grand battles, but in quiet songs shared around firelight? Dessert is small but sweet. A woman passes around figs stuffed with nuts, each one chewy and rich, the nuts crunching inside like a surprise. Another hands out candied ginger, fiery and sweet, each piece waking the mouth even as the body grows heavy with sleepiness. The flavors are bold, but in the cool night, they soothe rather than startle. The fires dim slowly. Sparks drift upward like stars joining their kin above. Conversations fade, replaced by the steady rhythm of water and the occasional plop of a fish. Blankets are spread, heads rest against bundles of grain or sacks of cloth. The river becomes a lullaby again, its voice weaving into the dreams of those who sleep by its edge. And you, too, feel that pull. The steady lap of water, the hum of song, the warmth of stew and bread, all combine into a comfort older than memory. The river flows, and in flowing, it carries not only goods and people, but the weight of tired bodies into rest. Dawn along the river comes quietly, as though the world is careful not to wake too abruptly. Mist rises from the surface, drifting like thin veils across the water. The air is cool, carrying the scent of wet earth and reeds. Birds begin their chorus once again, soft at first, then brighter as the sun climbs higher. The river glows with morning light, silver at the edges, gold at its heart, a ribbon of living metal winding through the land. Travelers stir from their mats, stretching their arms, rubbing sleep from their eyes. Some splash their faces with river water, laughing at the chill. Others sit cross-legged, sipping from cups of warm millet porridge, the steam rising in faint curls. A woman adds crushed dates to her bowl, stirring until it becomes a paste both sweet and filling. Imagine tasting that, porridge smooth, dates sticky, sweetness blending into comfort that lingers with every spoonful. It feels like a dish designed to begin a day slowly, calmly, with warmth. Boats are loaded once more. Goods are stacked carefully, baskets of grain, jars of honey, bundles of dried fish, even clay pots painted with swirling designs. The oars dip again, steady and sure, carrying vessels into the moving current. The sound of wood against water resonates, not hurried, just persistent, like the ticking of a clock made of waves. The riverbanks shift as the day grows. Fields stretch out, green and fertile, dotted with farmers tending their crops. Some wave from afar, hoes resting on their shoulders. Children carry bundles of reeds or balance clay jars on their heads, walking with grace even on uneven ground. Each movement feels practiced, smooth, as though daily life itself has become its own kind of art. Isn't it soothing to realize how often human lives find rhythm in repetition, turning work into music, movement into poetry? As the sun climbs higher, the air warms, and the river slows. Lunch comes again, fish roasted on small fires built along the banks. The flesh is white and flaky, seasoned with salt and a squeeze of lemon. Bread is passed around, torn into strips, dipped into fish oil, eaten with relish. Some chew roasted peanuts, crunching them between teeth, while others sip water scooped fresh from the river and cooled in clay jars. Each taste carries the landscape itself, earth, water, fire, all folded into simple, sustaining food. Afternoon stretches long, yet the river keeps its steady pace. Travelers rest in boats, some leaning back with hats over their eyes, others humming softly, their voices blending with the lap of water. A boy on the bank runs alongside for a while, holding up a basket of mangoes. He tosses one to a boatman, who catches it with a laugh and bites into it at once, juice dripping down his chin. Sweetness bursts across his tongue, cooling him as much as the river breeze. The boy waves proudly as he disappears into the distance, his basket lighter by one fruit but his heart surely fuller. As the day softens into evening again, colors change once more. The river mirrors the sky, painted pink, orange, then blue fading into twilight. Fires spark up along the banks, their smoke drifting lazily, their glow reflected on rippling surfaces. People gather, sharing bowls of stew, roasted maize, sweet fruits. Laughter rises, music follows, and once again, night folds itself gently around the river. The current does not stop. It moves beneath everything, meals, songs, laughter, silence, carrying all gently along. And as you listen to it, you feel the same pull, steady, patient, comforting. A reminder that even in motion, there is rest. Night has come again, and the river glows beneath the moon. Its surface shimmers like polished silver, rippling softly with the current. Lanterns on boats sway, their reflections stretching across the water in long, trembling lines. The air is cool, filled with the smell of smoke, fish, and wet reeds. If you sit quietly, you can hear it all, the low murmur of voices, the occasional splash of an oar, the gentle hum of insects rising from the banks. Around a fire on shore, families gather. Tonight's meal is rice, steamed until each grain is soft and fluffy, flavored with herbs and sprinkled with roasted peanuts. A pot of spiced fish sits nearby, its aroma rich, its broth glistening with oil. Bowls are filled and passed around, hands moving slowly, carefully. Each person eats with unhurried motions, savoring every spoonful. Imagine sitting cross-legged there, scooping rice and stew together, tasting salt and spice, crunch and softness in every bite. A simple feast, yet one that feels whole. Nearby, a woman sells sweet fritters fried in oil, their golden surfaces glistening under lamplight. They crunch when bitten, the inside warm and airy, flavored with nutmeg and honey. Children crowd around her, their laughter spilling out as they lick sticky fingers. Isn't it funny how fried dough seems to exist everywhere in the world, across cultures and centuries, always carrying joy with it? The music begins again, soft at first, then fuller. A flute carries a high, delicate tune, while drums tap steadily below. The kora joins in, its strings flowing like the river itself. Voices rise, some singing words, others humming, the harmony weaving into the night. The rhythm is not meant to rouse, it is meant to soothe, to guide tired bodies gently toward sleep. Travelers lie back on mats, their faces tilted toward the stars. The constellations stretch wide, endless, sharp against the deep blue sky. Someone points out a shape, saying it looks like a camel. Another insists it is a fish. The group laughs quietly, their voices fading into the steady hum of night. Isn't it calming to think that people, no matter where or when, have always looked up at the stars and told stories to fill the silence? Dessert passes once more, a handful of dates, a sip of sweetened milk, a bite of candied ginger. The flavors linger softly, clinging to the tongue like memories you don't want to let go. The fire crackles lower, its sparks drifting upward to join the stars. One by one, voices quiet, bowls are emptied, and blankets are pulled close. The river does not rest, but it sings more softly now. Its current cradles the boats, rocking them gently like a lullaby. The oars are pulled inside, the ropes tied, and the hulls creak as if settling in for sleep. Frogs croak in the reeds, their voices steady, rhythmic, adding to the night's song. Every sound feels woven together, the fire, the water, the insects, the voices, into one great harmony of rest. And you, listening, feel your body ease into the same rhythm. The river's breath becomes your own breath, slow, steady, flowing. The stars above mirror the ripples below, and you are carried along both currents at once. The river has taught its lesson. That life, like water, moves always forward, but gently, patiently, without hurry. That food, laughter, and song flow best when shared. That rest, too, can be carried like a boat, drifting on currents of calm. And so, as the night deepens, the river carries you into dreams. Let me tuck you into a quieter corner of the gold routes tonight, inside a city of clay where walls breathe warmth after sunset and alleys curl like gentle question marks. Imagine we've stepped into Timbuktu just as the heat loosens its grip. Lamps bloom along mud brick streets, and the air tastes faintly of dust, cardamom, and wood smoke. You and I move slowly, like ink across parchment, toward a courtyard where scholars gather with bundles of manuscripts tied in soft leather. If the desert was a drum and the markets a chorus, this is a heartbeat, steady, thoughtful, and low. We settle near the edge of the circle, where students press knee to knee beneath the glow of a single oil lamp. The flame wobbles when the breeze sighs, as if the lamp is thinking. A teacher clears his throat, and the courtyard seems to hush itself. He unrolls a manuscript, pages the color of toasted bread, letters flowing in brown, almost chocolatey strokes. Someone leans over and whispers that the Sankor quarter has welcomed learners since the 14th century, others nod as if they can still hear the footsteps of students from long ago. Doesn't it soothe you to picture knowledge traveling as patiently as a caravan, page by page, mile by mile? It smells delicious here, too, because wherever minds work late, snacks appear like small miracles. A wooden tray circles with millet cakes sweetened by date syrup, the edges crisp, the centers tender and warm. I take a bite and grin, it's like a medieval pancake that decided to become a cookie halfway through. Another bowl holds baobab fruit pulp whisked with water until it turns silky and tangy, a sleepy lemonade, the kind that softens the tongue and cools the chest. A student brings a pot of peanut stew, thick, nutty, comforting, and someone jokes it's the closest thing to a West African hot pocket if you ladle it into a hollowed round of bread. We laugh softly and try it, the bread soaks up the stew like a sponge made of happiness. Around us, pens scratch. Read nibs sip at wells of ink and glide over paper in measured strokes that sound like rain heard from another room. The scribe beside me sharpens his pen with a small knife and tests the tip on the margin, drawing a line so thin it's almost a whisper. He says these pages will be traded for salt, cloth, or gold dust, and sometimes for promises, a roof for a cousin, tuition for a child, a journey home. I love that, books becoming roofs, roofs becoming futures. A boy recites a passage about the stars, how their positions mark seasons, journeys, plantings. The teacher nods, and for a moment the courtyard lifts its eyes. Overhead the sky is deep as indigo cloth from the market, speckled with white seeds of light. You can see why manuscripts here describe the heavens with the same care they describe law and medicine. A single fact lands like a feather. Ahmed Baba, the renowned scholar born in 1556, once taught within these same walls. I let the date rest on my tongue like a spice, warm, grounding, just enough to anchor the dream. Another tray arrives, thin wafers pressed with sesame, glistening where honey has pooled, as if a beekeeper spilled sunlight and apologized by making candy. They crack softly, leaving a nutty echo and a sweet hum behind the teeth. A kettle murmurs on coals, and soon small cups of mint tea pass from hand to hand. The steam curls up like script, the kind your breath writes on a cold window, fleeting and heartfelt. You might expect a library to shush, but this one hums, a low, friendly buzz, like a hive that trusts you. Pages turn. Pens breathe. Minds lean toward one another. The clay walls hold the day's warmth the way bread holds stew, and everything feels soaked with comfort, the lamp glow, the steady recitation, the quiet pride of a copied line done just right. I find myself smiling at a simple thought, that these pages, stacked like bricks, build a house where sleep can rest its head. Knowledge as architecture. Stories as rooms. And you and I, guests in a home that has stood for centuries, padding softly over its cool floors. When the lamp gutter flutters and steadies again, the teacher closes the lesson with a prayer that floats up and dissolves into starlight. Students gather their pages, tie their cords, and tuck the night's learning beneath their arms like warm loaves. Somewhere, a distant drum reminds us the city is still awake, but only just. We rise, brush crumbs from our robes, and step back into alleys that smell of ink, mint, and the faint sweetness of sesame. And as we leave that warm courtyard of paper and patience, let your mind stroll ahead, past doorways where lanterns blink, past roofs cooling under moonlight, to the next quiet place on these golden routes, where another supper waits, another story opens, and sleep follows like a loyal friend. The alley carries us forward, its walls smooth and earthen, glowing faintly under moonlight. Every turn feels like a secret, yet never threatening, only patient, like a puzzle that knows you'll solve it eventually. The ground beneath our feet is cool, packed firm by centuries of footsteps. Somewhere above, a window creaks open, and the soft murmur of voices drifts into the street, mingling with the distant beat of a drum. Timbuktu at night is not silent, it hums like a cat, low and steady, content in its own stillness. We pause at a doorway where a woman sells late-night snacks from a clay pot. She ladles out spoonfuls of warm beans, spiced with pepper and onion, into small bowls. The beans are soft, smoky, with just enough bite to wake the tongue. A few travelers eat slowly, dipping torn pieces of bread, murmuring about journeys still ahead. She also offers fried plantains, golden and crisp, sprinkled with salt. Bite into one and it crunches at first, then melts into sweetness, as though sugar has been hiding in the fruit all along. Don't you love how food always seems to carry its own surprises? Farther down the street, lanterns guide us toward the market square, quieter now but not asleep. Merchants who sold spices and cloth by day now gather in clusters, sipping tea, playing board games scratched into the dirt. Wooden pieces click softly as they move across the board, each strike followed by laughter or a playful groan. It's comforting, watching strangers become friends over something so simple. Isn't that the essence of trade, not just goods exchanged, but moments, laughter, time itself shared like bread? At the edge of the square, a storyteller sits cross-legged, his cloak wrapped tightly against the night breeze. Children lean forward eagerly, though their eyes are already heavy with sleep. His tale tonight is of a traveler who carried a sack of salt across the desert only to find it had turned into sugar when he reached the market. The children giggle, debating whether it's magic or just a clever trick. The storyteller winks, leaving the mystery unsolved, and the children's laughter hangs in the air like bells. The smells here are softer now. Instead of the sharp spices of the day, it's smoke, bread, and sweetness. A baker has kept his oven hot, pulling out rounds of bread still steaming. Some are plain, while others are filled with mashed chickpeas, spiced and savory. He breaks one open, handing half to a child whose eyes glow brighter than any lantern. Steam curls up into the night, carrying with it the promise of comfort. Bread, after all, is a friend that never forgets to show up. As we wander further, we find ourselves at the edge of a library once more. Its heavy wooden door is closed, but even from outside, the walls seem to whisper. Perhaps it's the echo of countless pages turned, or maybe just the wind brushing across carved inscriptions. Either way, it feels like standing beside a sleeping giant, calm, safe, and wise. We sit for a moment on a low stone bench. The city stretches around us, rooftops rising like gentle waves. The stars above look close enough to touch, and the moon spills silver over every wall, every alley, every face still awake. Somewhere, a lute plucks a slow tune, soft enough to sound like memory rather than music. And you, sitting there, feel the same calm the city holds. Timbuktu breathes with you, slow, patient, unhurried. Its walls carry centuries, but tonight, they are simply walls keeping you safe. Its streets hold countless footsteps, but tonight, they guide you gently toward rest. The night stretches onward, but in this city it feels less like time passing and more like time resting. The air cools, brushing against your cheeks like silk pulled gently across skin. Footsteps echo in alleys, yet none rush. Each sound belongs to the slow heartbeat of Timbuktu after dark. A man beckons us toward a courtyard where a gathering continues even at this late hour. It is not a rowdy gathering, but a gentle one. Elders sit in a circle, their robes pale under moonlight, their voices weaving together in a discussion that is half debate, half lullaby. They speak of trade, of faith, of crops and caravans. Every sentence rises and falls like waves brushing ashore. No one interrupts, instead, each voice is a stone dropped into a pond, ripples spreading, then calming, before the next stone falls. Isn't it soothing to think of words not clashing but layering, each one adding depth without breaking the surface? A tray passes quietly among them, small bowls of rice flavored with butter and cloves. The rice is fragrant, fluffy, with just a whisper of spice that warms the chest. Someone drizzles honey across the top, turning a simple dish into something close to dessert. Imagine scooping it up slowly, each bite soft, sweet, light, like eating comfort in its purest form. On another tray are roasted groundnuts, their skins flaking away with each crack between teeth. They taste smoky, nutty, satisfying, perfect for nibbling while words drift around you. Food here is not only to fill bellies but to fill the spaces between thoughts, to keep the night gentle and generous. We step away after a time, down a narrow passage where shadows pool and the sound of our sandals against earth grows louder. At the end of the passage, the street opens into another square. Here, young men practice music beneath the stars. One plucks a lute, its notes bright and playful. Another taps a drum, steady and low, like the city's heartbeat. They are not performing for a crowd, only for each other, yet their joy carries outward like ripples. Isn't it curious how joy doesn't need an audience, it just exists, glowing quietly, content to be shared by whoever wanders close? A boy nearby roasts yams on a small fire. Their skins blacken, blister, split to reveal steaming flesh beneath. He peels one and offers it, the heat rising into your hands. The taste is sweet, earthy, almost caramel-like. The boy smiles proudly, as though he has given not just food, but a piece of his night. Farther along, the city reveals one of its wells. A few women draw water, their ropes creaking, their jars filling with hollow splashes. The water gleams like liquid silver in the moonlight, cool and clear. They balance jars on their heads with effortless grace, moving away as though the weight were air. Watching them, you feel the quiet strength of routine, the kind of strength that doesn't shout, but endures. And still, the smells follow us: smoke, yam, cloves, honey. They cling to the air like the memory of daylight, faint but present. The breeze carries them gently, mixing with the faint hum of voices that never fully stop in a city like this. When we pause again, it is at the edge of the rooftops. We climb a short set of steps and find ourselves above the alleys, the city laid out before us. The roofs glow faintly under starlight, flat and close together, like steps leading into the sky. A few people rest on their own roofs, lying back to watch the constellations. A woman hums a lullaby to her child, the notes floating into the night like drifting feathers. And you, too, feel cradled by this place, by its walls of clay, its voices, its scents, its rhythms. Timbuktu is not loud, not hurried. It simply is, steady, generous, endlessly patient. The kind of city that teaches you to breathe more slowly, to carry wisdom as lightly as a cup of tea. The rooftops hold us for a while, cradling us in their quiet height. From here, the city feels like a living tapestry, alleys curling like threads, lanterns glowing like stitched jewels, the river glimmering faintly beyond the walls. Timbuktu does not sprawl wildly, it rests, compact and thoughtful, like a book kept closed to protect its pages. We climb down gently and return to the streets, where a faint breeze brings the smell of spice again. A small stall glows with firelight, its owner tending to a clay oven. He pulls flat discs of bread from within, still steaming, their edges blistered and crisp. He spreads a paste of ground sesame and honey across the top, the mixture sinking into the warm bread until it glistens. He breaks a piece for us, and when you bite, it is sweet, nutty, fragrant, the closest thing to dessert and breakfast at once. Isn't it lovely how food can belong to no single time of day, only to appetite? Around another corner, we find a group of women weaving. Their looms creak softly as threads stretch, cross, knot. Indigo cloth emerges inch by inch, rich as night sky, sturdy yet soft. They laugh together as they work, teasing one another gently, their voices carrying warmth into the cool night air. One offers a strip of cloth to touch, it feels smooth, almost like water made solid. The dye stains your fingertips faintly blue, a souvenir more delicate than gold dust. Nearby, a scribe sits beneath a lantern, still at work long after most have retired. His reed pen scratches steadily over parchment, the sound small but insistent, like rain on a roof. He pauses to blow lightly on the ink, then continues, each word a stone placed carefully on a path meant for someone else's feet. He notices our gaze and smiles faintly, murmuring that words, once written, belong to the road, they travel farther than feet ever can. Have you ever thought of stories as caravans, carrying not salt or gold, but ideas that never tire? The city is not asleep, yet it is not awake in the way it was at midday. It exists in between, a gentle twilight of activity. At one doorway, a man roasts chickpeas over coals, their shells cracking softly. He tosses them with salt, then hands a handful to a child, who chews happily, shells crunching like tiny echoes in the night. The simple snack carries a warmth greater than its size, a comfort hidden in each nut. From deeper in the alley comes the sound of prayer, low voices murmuring in rhythm. They rise and fall like the tide, steady and unbroken, folding into the night as naturally as stars fold into the sky. The sound does not disturb, it soothes, as if the city itself is whispering good night. We stop at a courtyard where travelers from distant lands rest together. Some speak languages unfamiliar, their words like new instruments in the orchestra of the night. They share dried fruit, roasted meat, and bowls of milk thickened with honey. One man offers a date stuffed with almond, its sweetness sharpened by the crunch within. It tastes like a secret hidden in plain sight. They laugh as they share stories, their hands moving to explain what words cannot bridge. Trade here is not only in goods, but in gestures, flavors, and smiles. The moon climbs higher, casting silver down narrow streets. Cats slip through alleys, their eyes catching the light like tiny lanterns. The clay walls glow pale under moonlight, their edges softened, as though the city itself is preparing for sleep. And you, walking slowly through it, feel wrapped in the same stillness. Each sound is softened, each flavor lingering longer, each sight steadier. Timbuktu is not rushing anywhere tonight, it rests with you, guiding you gently, like a friend leading you by the hand toward dreams. The night has deepened, and Timbuktu is quieter now, though never silent. From one alley comes the faint clatter of a jar being set down, from another the rustle of fabric shaken out to air before sleep. Each sound is small, gentle, like punctuation marks in a book read aloud slowly. The city does not close its eyes, it blinks drowsily, content to watch the stars even as it rests. We wander toward the great mosque, its walls rising like sculpted earth, tall and strong yet softened by age. The clay towers seem to glow faintly under moonlight, their ridges casting shadows like the strokes of a painter's brush. Standing before it, you feel both tiny and sheltered, as if the walls themselves were arms stretching out to hold the night safe. Have you ever stood before a building so old, so enduring, that it seemed less like stone and more like memory made solid? That is what this mosque feels like now. Near the mosque, a vendor tends to one last kettle. The steam curls upward, fragrant with mint and sugar. He pours tea into small glasses, raising the pot high so the stream falls like silver thread before foaming at the rim. The ritual is as calming as the drink itself, the way he pours, pauses, pours again, each step measured, unhurried. The tea is strong, sweet, fresh on the tongue, sending warmth down the chest. It is the kind of drink that says, the day has ended, but rest is just beginning. A group of scholars passes, their robes brushing softly against the earth. They carry no books tonight, only themselves, their voices hushed. They smile politely, nodding as they go, their pace slow. Perhaps they, too, are thinking of sleep, of dreams filled with words and stars. Perhaps they are simply letting the night settle around them like a familiar cloak. We turn back into the narrow lanes, where homes glow faintly with the last embers of lamps. Inside, families murmur their final words of the day. Mothers hush children with soft lullabies, fathers share the last spoonfuls of porridge or beans, siblings giggle under shared blankets until even giggles fade into yawns. Through small windows, you glimpse shadows moving, settling, resting. Each home is its own story, its own lullaby, folded into the larger dream of the city. Somewhere a drum beats, slow and deliberate, like a heart reminding itself it is alive. Not music for dancing now, but for breathing. A rhythm that keeps the night steady, that turns silence into comfort rather than emptiness. The sound is distant, softened by walls and air, but it carries. It always carries. We pause once more in a courtyard before leaving this chapter. Here, an old man sits alone, stirring a pot of millet gruel. He offers a small bowl, and when you taste it, it is plain, almost bland, but warm and filling. He smiles with eyes more than mouth, content in giving even when little remains. That smile feels like Timbuktu itself, steady, generous, quiet, but unforgettable. The air cools further. The stars sharpen overhead, constellations standing like guardians above the clay walls. The moon drapes silver across every surface, so that even shadow seems gentle. You walk slowly, feeling your own breath match the city's, long, deep, calm. And as you lie down now, perhaps on a rooftop mat or beneath a courtyard arch, Timbuktu holds you as it has held countless travelers before. Its walls are pillows, its alleys are blankets, its stories are lullabies. The city whispers nothing urgent, only this: rest now, for tomorrow's sun will rise, and with it, another quiet journey. Good evening again, my friend. Tonight we trade dunes and riverbanks for the hush of a moonlit shoreline, where the ocean breathes in and out like a giant sleeping at the edge of the world. Settle your blanket a little closer around your shoulders. Listen, there's a soft shush as waves comb the sand, and a clink of rigging from a wooden dhow rocking gently in the harbor. The air is salted with sea spray and brightened with spice, as if the breeze has been steeped in cinnamon and citrus before it reaches your face. If this calm carries you, let your eyelids grow heavier, and if these quiet wanderings help you unwind, perhaps tap like and subscribe, only if it feels right. We are on the Swahili coast, where towns like Kilwa, Mombasa, Lamu, and Zanzibar stitched Africa to Arabia and India by the thread of the monsoon. The wind is the timetable here, punctual as a patient teacher. One season brings ships in, the next carries them home. Lanterns glow along the quay. Coral stone houses breathe out the day's warmth. A fish market drowses under palm thatch roofs while cats, dignified as minor officials, patrol the aisles in hopes of a forgotten morsel. A small historical feather to anchor our dream, travelers like Ibn Battuta walked these streets in the 1330s, noting a coast rich in trade and courtesy, where mosques rose beside coconut groves and sailors read the sky like a book. Let's nibble our way into the night, because every good harbor keeps a snack within reach. A vendor sets a griddle over coals and spoons batter into little moons, vitumbua, rice and coconut pillows that puff as they cook. He flicks his wrist, and they turn with a soft hiss, lightly crisp outside, cloud soft within. When he hands you one, the warmth presses into your palm first, then the scent, coconut sweet, with a whisper of cardamom. You bite, and it is like a seaside marshmallow decided to get an education in flavor. For a playful contrast, someone slides over a skewer of tamarind-glazed octopus, charred at the edges, tangy and bright, closest thing to a medieval sour candy on a stick, only chewier and far more ambitious. Down the jetty, sailors coil rope as neatly as scribes stack pages. Each line thumps into a circle, patient and exact. A captain tests the wind with his cheek, the gesture so small you might miss it. He nods, the night is friendly. Dhows bob with triangular lateen sails furled tight, like folded wings waiting for morning's signal. The hulls smell of tar, salt, and sun-baked wood, a perfume that says, stories aboard. Have you ever noticed how boats creak in two dialects at once, one for water, one for wood? It's a duet that settles under the skin. We drift toward a street where mortars thump in unhurried rhythm. Cooks pound green chilies with garlic and a squeeze of lime, making a sauce that wakes the tongue without shaking it by the shoulders. A bowl of coconut fish stew simmers nearby, tomatoes mellowed by creaminess, coriander floating like tiny rafts. We tear bread and let it sip the broth for us. The mouthful is gentle heat, ocean sweetness, and the kind of comfort that makes shoulders forget to be tense. Someone grins and calls it the closest thing to a hot pocket the tide ever cooked. They're not wrong, it's the sort of handheld warmth that could talk a sailor out of a bad mood. Beyond, a doorway bright with lamplight reveals beadwork and woven baskets, colors arranged like calm fireworks. A craftsman threads tiny glass beads into starbursts that seem to hum even when they're still. He says the beads arrived with last season's wind and will leave on the next, braided into hair, stitched into cloth, walking the world one anklet at a time. Isn't that a soothing thought, that beauty itself can hitchhike on the weather? For balance, let's finish with something sweet. A girl offers date and cashew halwa, glossy and gently spiced, cut into wobbling squares that behave like dessert daydreams. You press a bite with your spoon, it yields with a sigh, then vanishes on the tongue, leaving cinnamon and a shy echo of clove. Somewhere a drum begins, soft, steady, like a heartbeat listening to itself. Voices join in a low chorus. The shore keeps its own lullaby, and the tide keeps time. And as the lanterns lean into the breeze and the sails sleep folded, let your breath mirror the oceans. In and out, the monsoon's cradle rocking you toward the next small harbor of dreams. Shall we wander there together when the wind turns? Morning arrives not with desert silence but with gulls calling above the harbor. Their cries are sharp yet playful, like children racing each other through the sky. The air is thick with salt, cool at first but carrying a promise of warmth. The ocean is a sheet of shifting silver, rippling as though the sun is writing its name across the waves. Fishermen return early, their dhows gliding gracefully into shore. Nets spill with their catch, snapper, grouper, mackerel, scales glinting like coins scattered from a generous hand. The market stirs awake as baskets of fish are carried inland. Women in bright kangas call out greetings, bargaining with laughter more than argument. Isn't it calming to think of trade not as shouting, but as a conversation softened by smiles? Breakfast waits along the quay. Vendors ladle warm porridge made from millet and coconut milk, sweetened with sugar cane syrup. The porridge is creamy, with a faint nutty note that lingers on the tongue. Someone sprinkles cloves and cardamom across the top, and suddenly the bowl sings with fragrance. Imagine taking a spoonful, smooth, rich, sweet, but light enough to start a long day. Alongside it, small fried breads, mahamri, triangle-shaped, golden, with the faintest scent of yeast. Bite one, and it crunches gently before giving way to softness, like a pillow that sighs under your cheek. Paired with chai spiced with cinnamon and ginger, it feels like breakfast composed by the ocean itself. The streets grow livelier as the sun climbs. Coral stone houses glow pale in the light, their carved wooden doors heavy with patterns of vines and stars. Shadows pool under balconies, where merchants display strings of amber beads, bolts of cloth, and brass lamps polished to mirror brightness. The air smells of cloves, always cloves, mixed with the smoke of charcoal fires where fish sizzle on skewers. You pause to taste one, the char smoky, the flesh tender, brushed with tamarind glaze that makes your lips pucker just before sweetness calms it again. Children chase one another through narrow lanes, their bare feet slapping against stone, their laughter echoing between walls. Cats lounge in doorways, tails flicking lazily, keeping one eye half open as if they too are merchants with territory to guard. A group of sailors plays a game of bow, sliding cowrie shells across a wooden board, each move accompanied by quiet concentration. The board clicks softly, like a metronome keeping time for the day. As the tide shifts, dhows prepare for departure. Sails are unfurled, white triangles catching the wind like wings lifting from the sea. The monsoon is not just weather, it is a schedule, a teacher, a companion. One sailor laughs, saying, "The wind is the only clock that matters here." His words drift as easily as his boat. Have you ever felt time stretch, not in hours or minutes, but in breezes and tides? That is life here, measured by the sea's own rhythm. Lunch simmers in seaside pots, coconut rice, fluffy and fragrant, served with fish curry glowing golden with turmeric. The curry is both fiery and soothing, the rice cooling it in each bite. Pickled mango adds a sour spark, a playful kick that keeps the tongue awake. To finish, sugarcane juice is pressed fresh, green stalks crushed until sweet liquid spills into clay cups. Cold, grassy, honey-like, it slides down the throat like liquid sunlight. By afternoon, the city slows. Shadows stretch across narrow alleys, and doors close softly to keep heat outside. From within, the faint clatter of pots continues, mixed with the quiet murmur of voices. Above, the wind shifts, a gentle reminder that journeys never stop. Even resting, the ocean is always moving. And you, sitting with your back against a warm coral wall, feel your breath move with it. Slow, steady, rocking like a dhow tied safely in harbor. The Swahili shore cradles you in its rhythm, inviting you to rest even while the tide pulls forward. Evening drapes itself over the coast gently, as though the sky is laying down its own blanket. The horizon glows first orange, then pink, then a deep violet that melts slowly into the sea. Lanterns flicker to life one by one along the harbor, their flames trembling in the breeze but never going out. The scent of salt, smoke, and spice lingers in the air like a lullaby you can breathe. Along the beach, fishermen roast part of their catch over open fires. The smoke carries a tang of char and sea, rising into the night as sparks chase one another upward. They season the fish with garlic, ginger, and coconut milk, turning each fillet golden as it cooks. When you taste a piece, the outside flakes apart, smoky and crisp, while the inside melts into tender sweetness. It is food that feels alive with the ocean, as though waves themselves taught it flavor. Nearby, a group of women fry mandazi, small, sweet breads, dusting them lightly with sugar. Children crowd around, waiting for their turn. The mandazi crunch lightly at the edges but are soft within, the sweetness simple but perfect. Imagine holding one warm in your hand, steam curling upward, the sugar clinging to your lips after a bite. Doesn't it remind you of childhood snacks, uncomplicated, joyful, more memory than food? Further down the shore, a circle forms around drummers. Their hands beat steadily on the skins, each rhythm layered over the next until the night itself seems to dance. A flute weaves in, high and airy, like wind skipping across the surface of the water. Voices rise, some singing, some just humming, a harmony as natural as waves. The dancers sway slowly, their steps unhurried, their movements like tides, flowing forward, pulling back, always circling, always patient. Watching them, you feel time dissolve, there is no rush, no hour, only rhythm. The ocean answers, its waves rolling softly, matching the drum's cadence. Each splash against shore is another beat, another reminder that land and sea share the same pulse. It is soothing, hypnotic, as though the whole world has chosen one tempo for the night. Have you noticed how your own breathing starts to follow it, steady and slow, without you even trying? That's what the Swahili shore does, it teaches breath to move like waves. Dessert comes in quiet offerings. Someone passes a plate of kashada, blocks of coconut and sugar, crisp and sweet, flavored faintly with cardamom. The coconut crunches first, then dissolves, leaving sweetness that lingers long after the bite is gone. Another hand offers halwa, smooth and glossy, flavored with saffron, almonds, and rosewater. It trembles like jelly but tastes like silk, sweet yet dignified, like dessert that knows its worth. Each bite is small, but each carries the weight of centuries, recipes passed down like lullabies themselves. As night deepens, the fires burn lower. People lie back on mats spread over sand, their bodies outlined in flickering light. Conversations soften into murmurs, then into silence, broken only by the hush of waves. The sky above is littered with stars, so many it feels as though the ocean has splashed upward, scattering droplets of light across the heavens. The Milky Way arches clearly, a silver road for dreamers to wander. Somewhere, a storyteller begins, not loudly, but in a voice calm and measured, like a breeze. He tells of sailors who followed the monsoon, who carried ivory, spices, and gold across seas to faraway ports. He speaks of storms weathered, of new lands seen, of friendships forged across languages. His story is both history and lullaby, meant to remind listeners that journeys are as endless as waves. And you, stretched out on the sand, feel your body soften as each word drifts over you. The drums fade, the flute whispers, the waves keep their rhythm. The Swahili coast hums you toward sleep, steady as a mother rocking a cradle. Dawn along the coast is quieter than evening, softer than night. The first light spreads across the horizon like spilled milk, slow and pale, before warming into gold. The sea glimmers gently, a mirror waking from sleep. Dhows anchored in the harbor creak softly, their sails still furled, their hulls rocking as if dreaming. The tide whispers in and out, steady, patient, unchanged. The air smells fresh, salt, damp wood, a faint trace of smoke from fires that never fully die out. Fishermen already stir. They push their boats into the shallows, their footsteps splashing, their laughter low but bright. Nets are piled neatly, ropes coiled like sleeping snakes. A boy carries a basket of bait, proud of his duty, his eyes wide with morning light. Isn't it soothing to think of work beginning not with haste but with ritual, each motion folded into the day like a prayer? Breakfast arrives in simple comforts. A woman ladles warm uji, porridge of millet and coconut milk, into clay bowls. She sweetens it with sugarcane syrup, stirs, and hands it over with a smile. The porridge is creamy, slightly nutty, and faintly sweet, coating the mouth like a gentle hush. Alongside, she offers mahamri, still hot from oil, triangles puffed golden, their edges crisp, their centers airy. Dipped into tea spiced with ginger and cinnamon, they taste like morning itself decided to become food. Imagine sipping the tea, the steam warming your nose, the flavor lifting your chest awake while your body still moves slowly, calmly. By midday, the shore brightens into motion. Markets come alive again. Stalls of coral stone and palm thatch burst with color, woven mats in reds and blues, baskets filled with limes and coconuts, jars of spice glowing amber and rust. The smell of cloves hovers above everything, sharp yet comforting, as though the air itself has been seasoned. Merchants call gently, their voices more song than shout, coaxing smiles from customers. One stall serves grilled prawns brushed with tamarind sauce, their shells snapping softly as you peel them. The taste is smoky, tangy, a perfect marriage of fire and sea. Another offers skewers of chicken marinated in coconut and lime, the meat tender, the flavor bright, the char crisp. Imagine walking slowly between stalls, nibbling, tasting, pausing, each bite a postcard from the coast. Children weave through the crowd with trays balanced on their heads. Some carry roasted groundnuts, others small cakes made of rice and coconut. They giggle when coins are placed in their hands, proud as kings of their tiny kingdoms. Their laughter feels like sunlight woven into sound. In the afternoon, the wind shifts. The monsoon whispers its reminder that journeys are waiting. Sails are unfurled, their white triangles snapping into place. The harbor fills with motion, boats leaning into the wind, ropes straining, waves slapping gently at hulls. The air is alive with the smell of salt spray, the taste of departure. Have you ever felt that tug, that mixture of excitement and calm that comes when you know change is near? That is what the wind carries here. By evening, the city slows again. Fires are lit along the shore, their glow mirrored on the water. Supper simmers in wide pots, coconut rice with saffron, fish curry rich with tomato, onions fried until golden and sweet. The flavors are bold yet comforting, each spoonful balancing warmth with richness. A bowl of mango slices follows, bright, juicy, sticky sweet, juices running down fingers and laughed at rather than scolded. The tide rolls back in, brushing the sand as though tucking it in for sleep. The voices soften, the fires burn lower, the sails fold once more. And you, sitting near the shore, feel the rhythm slow again. The monsoon is patient. The ocean is endless. And the Swahili night breathes with you, slow, steady, guiding you gently toward rest. The night along the Swahili coast arrives like silk unfurled, smooth and shimmering. The sea, no longer bright with sunlight, becomes a dark mirror reflecting lanterns from the harbor. Dhows rest at anchor, their masts pointing like quiet fingers toward constellations overhead. The air is heavy with salt and clove, cool enough to draw a shawl closer, soft enough to soothe even restless thoughts. Families gather near fires along the beach. Pots simmer with simple stews, lentils thickened with coconut milk, spiced with coriander and ginger. Bread is torn into pieces and dipped slowly, soaking up broth that tastes both earthy and ocean-bright. Someone passes roasted maize, charred and smoky, kernels popping between teeth. Another shares fried cassava chips sprinkled with salt and lime, crisp at first bite, soft at the center, refreshing in their tang. Each snack feels like a gentle surprise, a reminder that comfort comes in small, shared handfuls. Children run in circles on the sand, their laughter ringing against the steady hush of waves. They chase fireflies that wink like tiny lanterns, catching them briefly in cupped palms before letting them go. Cats curl close to the fire's warmth, their tails twitching, their eyes reflecting flames. Dogs sprawl lazily, paws twitching as though dreaming of running along the tide. Life here at night is unhurried, every creature folding itself into rest. Music begins again, as it always does when darkness deepens. Drums pulse softly, steady as heartbeats, while voices rise in harmony. A flute adds its thread, weaving through the melody like silver on black cloth. The rhythm is not meant to stir feet but to settle souls. You feel it seep into your body, into your chest, your arms, your breathing, until you sway without trying, as though the tide itself is rocking you. For dessert, a woman serves halwa, glistening with ghee and speckled with cardamom seeds. She cuts it into squares that wobble slightly, then firm under your spoon. The taste is silky, fragrant, sweet but balanced, leaving behind a warmth that lingers long after the bite is gone. Others pass around sesame brittle, its crunch sharp but satisfying, honey clinging to teeth in the most pleasant way. These small sweets, eaten slowly, feel less like indulgence and more like gratitude, gratitude to the sea, to the wind, to the night for its calm. Later, when the fires dim, voices quiet into murmurs. Stories drift like smoke, tales of sailors who followed monsoon winds across oceans, of traders who carried ivory and gold to faraway lands, of storms that tested but never defeated. The storytellers speak slowly, their words long and measured, as though time itself leans in to listen. Children's eyes grow heavy, heads leaning against mothers' laps, until sleep steals them away mid-sentence. The ocean continues its lullaby. Waves roll in, retreat, roll in again. The rhythm is endless, patient, and forgiving. Above, the stars scatter thick across the sky, brighter than lamps, clearer than ink. The Milky Way stretches overhead, looking like a second ocean, this one frozen in place, flowing only for the eyes. Have you ever noticed how lying beneath such a sky makes you feel both small and infinite at once? That is the gift of nights like these. As you stretch out on the sand, the world folds into softness. The tide rocks gently, the music hums low, the stars keep their watch. Every sound, every taste, every sight gathers into one feeling, safety. The coast does not hurry you. It cradles you, as though saying, rest here. The winds will wait. And so the chapter closes, not with a door shutting, but with waves brushing the shore, again and again, until sleep carries you further than any ship could sail. Good evening, dear traveler. Tonight, we step into the closing path of our long wanderings. We have followed caravans through desert sands, markets alive with voices, rivers flowing steady, cities of clay, and shores ruled by the monsoon winds. Now, in this last chapter, we gather what we have seen, like beads strung onto a necklace, and let memory itself be our road. Imagine sitting by a low fire on the edge of the desert once more. The air is cool, the stars sharp, the silence deep but not empty. Around you, travelers do what they have always done at day's end, share food, share stories, share the warmth of company. A bowl of lentil stew simmers over the fire, seasoned with onions and cumin. Someone dips bread, tearing it into soft strips, letting it soak before tasting. The flavor is familiar by now, comforting as an old friend. Isn't it remarkable how the simplest foods, repeated again and again, become not boring but beloved? Nearby, another hand passes roasted dates, glossy and sticky, their sweetness softened by the smoke of the fire. Bite into one, and it is not just sugar on the tongue, it is memory of markets, oases, riverbanks, and harbors where dates were eaten in different ways but always with joy. Each taste carries a place, a season, a face. Each bite is a thread binding the journey into one whole cloth. As the stew bubbles, voices begin to rise. Someone recalls the markets of Timbuktu, where indigo cloth glowed like night itself and jars of honey captured sunlight. Another speaks of the river, wide and patient, carrying boats heavy with grain and songs sung to the rhythm of oars. Someone else laughs about the coast, about fritters fried golden in dhows that rocked like cradles in the tide. And a quiet voice mentions the desert again, the endless bells, the soft dunes, the silence that taught patience better than any teacher. Every story is a piece of the journey, retold slowly, softly, so it lulls rather than excites. A platter of sweets is passed around, sesame brittle, honey cakes, pieces of halwa cut into trembling squares. Each traveler chooses one, chewing slowly, letting flavor turn into memory. Isn't it gentle to realize that food itself is a kind of history, carrying the fingerprints of places and people long gone, yet still alive in taste? The fire crackles lower, sparks rising like the caravan bells you first heard at the start of our story. The sound is the same rhythm, steady and patient, carrying you back to where we began. A traveler hums an old tune, no words, just vowels stretched like wind over dunes. Another joins, then another, until the whole camp hums softly, a choir of voices blending into the night. It is not music for performance. It is music for rest, for sleep, for the endless comfort of being together. Above, the stars stretch across the sky like roads made of light. They are the same stars watched by sailors on the Swahili coast, by scholars in Timbuktu, by children chasing fireflies along the river. They are the same stars you see now, wherever you are, linking you to all who came before. That is the final truth of the gold routes, they connected not only cities, but hearts. They wove not only trade, but memory. And as you lean back, letting the fire's warmth meet the night's cool air, you feel the road itself settle beneath you, not sand, not stone, not water, but memory. The gold is not in coins or nuggets, but in the simple weight of stories shared, meals eaten, songs sung. The journey itself has been the treasure all along. The fire in our camp burns low, but it does not need to be high. Flames lick gently at the wood, and the embers glow like small stars at our feet. Travelers sit closer now, leaning in against the night's cool breath. The desert stretches away on all sides, dark and endless, but the circle of fire feels like a world of its own, safe, soft, and steady. A kettle hums, set carefully at the fire's edge. Soon, mint leaves are dropped into the water, their fragrance rising in little curls of steam. When the tea is poured, it gleams amber in the cups, hot to the touch. One sip and your chest feels lighter, your shoulders loosen. The sweetness is balanced, the mint both sharp and soothing, like a cool breeze carried on warm air. Isn't it curious how tea can carry such opposites, heat and freshness, sugar and sharpness, yet leave you calmer with every sip? Someone passes a plate of fried dough strips drizzled with honey. They crunch at first, then soften, sticking to fingers and lips. The sweetness is familiar now, a cousin of the halwa from the coast, the brittle from the markets, the candied fruits eaten along the river. Each version is different, yet all are kin, bound together by the human love of sweetness at day's end. As the food settles, the talk shifts. Stories become reflections. A traveler speaks of Mansa Musa, the king whose pilgrimage in 1324 spilled so much gold into Cairo that markets trembled under its weight. Another recalls the scholars of Sankor, who copied pages until their fingers ached, believing that ink was richer than gold dust. Someone smiles and says that even the humblest cook along the routes, with a pot of stew and a loaf of bread, carried wealth too, the wealth of comfort, of nourishment, of keeping others alive. Isn't it soothing to think that history holds not just kings, but cooks, porters, scribes, and singers, each important in their own way. The air grows cooler, and blankets are pulled tighter. Above, the Milky Way stretches like a silver river, endless and patient. A boy points to it and asks if it might be the same path as the one beneath their feet. The elders chuckle, not to mock him but to praise the thought. Perhaps he is right. Perhaps the sky is simply another road, one that mirrors the earth, carrying its own caravans of light. The music begins again, soft and low. A drum beats slowly, no faster than a heartbeat. A lute plucks notes that hover like moths around the fire. Voices hum without words, weaving together like threads. The sound is not meant to entertain. It is meant to cradle, to remind you that life, when slowed, is itself a lullaby. Someone passes roasted peanuts, warm from the coals, their shells cracking gently between fingers. Another shares slices of dried mango, leathery at first bite but then releasing a tangy sweetness that brightens the tongue. Little tastes, little comforts, each one keeping the circle of warmth alive. The night deepens. Shadows press closer, but they do not frighten. The fire holds them at bay, glowing steady, and the stars above keep their watch. The desert hums in its own way, not silent but filled with soft noises, the sigh of sand shifting, the distant bark of a fox, the whisper of wind across dunes. Every sound is gentle, as if the world itself is trying not to wake anyone. And you, sitting here, feel your breath slow to match the rhythm around you. The fire crackles, the tea soothes, the stories drift. The echoes of gold are not coins clinking in bags. They are the warmth of shared food, the hum of voices, the patience of roads that connected people long before you. Gold here is memory, and memory is gold. The night continues, and the fire glows lower, but it is enough. Around it, faces are lit in warm patches, eyes reflecting sparks like tiny mirrors. The mood is not lively now, it is gentle, softened by the weight of travel and the comfort of being together. A woman begins a story, her voice slow, each word stretched like fabric being woven. She speaks of salt, carried in great slabs across the desert. White gold, she calls it, as precious as coins, because without salt, food lost its flavor, bodies lost their strength. She describes traders stacking it on camels, each slab heavy as a promise. Her voice makes you taste it, the sharpness on the tongue, the way it lifts even the plainest stew. Isn't it calming to think how something so small and ordinary could once carry the weight of empires? Her tale reminds another traveler of the river. He describes the mango trees along its banks, heavy with fruit that dripped juice down the hands of laughing children. He remembers roasted maize crackling on fire, and fish stew bubbling in clay pots. His story is less about kings or wealth, more about the comfort of food after long journeys. He says softly, perhaps the greatest treasure the roads carried was not gold, but the flavors of home shared with strangers. The circle nods, silent but agreeing. The kettle is filled again, this time with water for spiced milk. Cinnamon sticks and cloves are dropped in, their scent filling the air. The drink is rich, heavy with warmth, soothing the body into drowsiness. Imagine holding that cup, the rim hot against your fingers, the steam rising into your nose, the taste creamy and fragrant. Each sip feels like sleep itself poured into liquid form. Nearby, a boy roasts groundnuts in a small pan, shaking it over the fire until the shells pop faintly. He passes them around, proud of his work. They are salty, crunchy, simple, but each crack between teeth feels satisfying, grounding. Another traveler unwraps dried figs from a cloth bundle, their skins wrinkled but their insides still sweet, sticky, rich. The flavors are not new, but familiar, and that familiarity itself is comfort. As the food fades, the stories shift again. A man speaks of the coast, of dhows lifted by monsoon winds, of spices traded like secrets whispered between continents. He recalls the scent of cloves filling entire streets, of fritters fried golden, of children chasing fireflies along the sand. His voice lingers on the rhythm of waves, steady as a drum that never stops. The sea, he says, reminds us that everything is connected, just as the roads do. Silence follows for a while, not heavy, just thoughtful. The desert hums softly, the fire sighs, and above, the stars glow brighter as if leaning closer to listen. Have you noticed how silence sometimes speaks more clearly than words? In this circle, silence feels like agreement, like rest, like a story still being told even without voices. Dessert is small tonight, just a handful of candied ginger, fiery and sweet. The spice wakes the tongue, the sugar soothes it, leaving warmth that lingers deep in the chest. It is the kind of taste that keeps you awake just long enough to carry you gently into sleep. One last song rises, barely more than a murmur. A lute plucks notes that drift upward like sparks. A drum taps slowly, softer than footsteps. Voices hum, some low, some high, blending until they sound like the desert itself singing. The music is not meant to end, it is meant to fade, like fire sinking into embers. And so the night deepens, and you feel it too, the gold routes have given you their final treasure. Not coins, not jewels, but memory, of food, of laughter, of music, of stars. Gold in its truest form, the moments that stay even when the journey ends. The embers glow faintly now, pulsing like a heartbeat. Travelers shift under their blankets, some already asleep, others half dreaming, their faces softened by rest. The desert air is cool but not biting, and the stars overhead burn steadily, unbothered by centuries of eyes watching them. One of the elders still awake begins to speak, his voice a slow hum, steady as the wind. He talks not of riches, but of footsteps. The gold routes, he says, were never just about what they carried. They were about the people who walked them. Each step, each breath, each shared loaf of bread, that is the true wealth. His words linger in the air, not heavy, but gentle, like a lullaby meant as much for himself as for the listeners. A pot of rice pudding is passed around, warm and sweet, flavored with cardamom and sprinkled lightly with raisins. Each spoonful melts soft on the tongue, comforting as a familiar embrace. It is not a feast, not an extravagant dish, but it tastes like gratitude. Imagine holding that bowl, feeling its warmth seep into your palms, and knowing that this, too, is gold, gold in the form of care, of nourishment, of simple kindness. Someone else recalls Timbuktu, the city of clay, where manuscripts filled libraries like forests of paper. He speaks of students bent over pages, copying words by lamplight, each line as valuable as any coin. Knowledge, he says softly, was the gold that weighed the heaviest. Around the fire, heads nod, eyes half closed but listening still. Have you ever noticed how the quietest truths often feel the truest? A woman hums a tune, rocking a child against her chest. The melody is soft, almost too soft to hear, yet it carries through the circle. Her voice weaves with the crackle of the fire, the whisper of wind, the slow breathing of those asleep. The lullaby is not only for her child, it settles over everyone, a blanket stitched of sound. Dessert is offered again, because no night should end without sweetness. Tonight it is honey mixed with crushed nuts, rolled into small balls. They are chewy, sticky, a little crunchy in the center. The taste clings, stretching long after the bite is gone. Each traveler takes one, chewing slowly, savoring the way sweetness lingers longer in the quiet. As the night stretches deeper, the circle grows quieter still. The elder speaks again, reminding them that the desert, the river, the markets, the cities, the coast, they were never separate. They were beads on the same thread, tied by footsteps and winds, by laughter and food, by stories and songs. And now, he says, the beads live in us. A hush falls, not empty but full. The desert hums softly. The camels sigh in their sleep. A fox calls once in the distance, then vanishes back into silence. The world feels cradled, as though the night itself is holding its breath to keep from waking anyone. You lie back, staring at the sky. The constellations look like roads, bright, endless, guiding. Perhaps they are. Perhaps they always have been. And in that thought, you feel the circle close, the roads of gold below, the roads of light above, both carrying the same truth, that journeys are not about endings, but about the memories left glowing like embers. Your body softens, your breath slows. The fire fades, the stars remain, and the road of memory carries you forward, not to another city, not to another coast, but to rest. The last logs crumble into a hush of ash. The fire's glow is a quiet circle now, a small moon fallen to earth. Around it, most travelers sleep, their breathing a soft, shared rhythm. A few of us linger at the edge, watching the embers pulse, bright, dim, bright, like a patient heartbeat. We are not waiting for anything in particular. We are simply letting the night finish speaking. A kettle warms once more, because endings deserve warmth. This time it holds milk with a pinch of cinnamon and a ribbon of honey. The milk thickens slightly as it heats, enough to coat the cup and the tongue with comfort. When you sip, the sweetness arrives first, then the spice, then a drowsy quiet that settles in your chest. It's the kind of drink that turns even worries into yawns. Someone breaks a small loaf and passes pieces around the circle. The bread is plain, a little smoky from being warmed beside the coals. We dip it into the last spoonfuls of lentil stew, into the sheen of honey, into nothing at all, just bread as bread. And yet it feels abundant, the way simple things do when they are shared. Isn't it gentle to discover, again and again, that abundance often looks like enough? The elder smooths the sand with his palm, drawing a slow line that curves, loops, and meets itself again. Roads, he murmurs, are like stories. They return. He dots the line with his fingertip. Here is the desert where bells rang like wind chimes. Another dot. Here the markets, where honey glowed and spices sang. Another. Here the river's hush, boats rocked by oars. Another. Here clay cities, pages warm as bread. Another. Here the sea, where winds keep time. He connects each point with a lazy stroke. And here, he says, pressing the center, is the place where we sit, holding all of it at once. The wind lifts a corner of someone's blanket and sets it back down, careful as a parent. Far off, a camel shifts and sighs. Nearer, ash settles with the faintest crackle, like a page turned slowly. Overhead, the sky is crowded with stars, but they do not jostle, they make room for one another. You realize that memory behaves the same way, each moment bright, none needing to outshine the rest. A final taste passes hand to hand, dates split and filled with almond. The snap of the nut answers the silk of the fruit, sweetness and quiet strength in one bite. The flavor is familiar, a refrain we've heard in many places, oasis, market, riverbank, shore, always different, always the same. That is how journeys weave themselves, through variations on comfort until comfort itself becomes a map. No one announces sleep. It arrives like mist, low and kind. A traveler hums a fragment of song and forgets to finish, the note lingers in the air and then becomes the air. The drum, resting on its side, is a round shadow. The lute strings gleam faintly, but their music sleeps inside them. The elder leans back, closes his eyes, and smiles, a small, contented smile that seems to bless the night. You lie down, too, and the ground meets you as if it has been practicing all day. The blanket finds your shoulders. Your breath finds the old, steady rhythm. You do not leave the gold routes, they draw themselves gently over you like constellations. Desert, market, river, city, shore, each becomes a quiet room in one long house. You wander from room to room without moving at all, passing through flavors and footsteps, through ink and wind, through songs that do not end so much as settle. And when your eyelids fall, the embers answer with one last, soft brightening, as if to say, I saw you. I will keep watch. The night accepts the promise. The stars agree. The road of memory glows on, even as sleep closes the door with a loving hand. Now rest. The caravans will walk again, the markets will open, the river will glide, the clay walls will warm, and the monsoon will lift its sails. But not yet. For now, the world is a cradle, and you are already rocking. Good night, dear traveler. May these memories guide you into peaceful dreams and keep your heart unhurried. If you drifted off along the way, let me know below, only if it feels right. Thank you for walking these quiet roads with me. Sleep well, and until our next gentle journey, good night.